flickering neon sign of the Last Chance Saloon cast an eerie glow on Silas Thorne's face, the rain mirroring the turmoil in his eyes. He'd just betrayed his partner, Jericho, a man who'd taken him in when he was nothing. Jericho, with his uncanny ability to see the future, had always warned Silas about the dangers of greed. But Silas, blinded by the promise of untold riches, had chosen the path of betrayal. He'd slipped a vial of potent poison into Jericho's drink, a concoction guaranteed to erase any trace of Jericho's unique gift. With Jericho out of the picture, Silas would inherit their lucrative operation, a network of informants and enforcers that whispered secrets to the highest bidders. But as Silas savored his newfound freedom, a chilling premonition washed over him. It wasn't the fear of being caught, though that was a distinct possibility. It was something deeper, a primal dread that clawed at his soul. He tried to dismiss it as guilt, a natural reaction to his treachery. But the feeling intensified, a suffocating weight pressing down on his chest. He glanced around the saloon, the faces of the patrons blurring into grotesque caricatures. Each one seemed to hold a knowing glint in their eyes, a silent accusation. Silas downed another whiskey, the fiery liquid offering little solace. He needed to get out of there, to escape the suffocating atmosphere. As he pushed through the saloon doors, the rain intensified, mirroring the storm brewing within him. He hailed a cab, the driver eyeing him with a mixture of suspicion and pity. Silas didn't notice, his mind consumed by a single, terrifying thought: Jericho's curse. Jericho, despite his gentle demeanor, had always warned Silas about the consequences of betraying his gift. He'd spoken of a debt that would have to be repaid, a price far greater than any earthly gain. Silas had scoffed, dismissing it as superstition. Now he wasn't so sure. The cab ride was a blur. Silas barely registered the city lights flashing past, his senses consumed by the growing dread. He arrived at his opulent penthouse, the lavish furnishings now mocking his betrayal. The silence was deafening, the only sound the rhythmic pounding of his own heart. He tried to distract himself, indulging in a lavish meal, but the food tasted like ash. He tried to drown his sorrows in expensive wine, but the alcohol only amplified his fears. As the night deepened, the premonitions intensified. Shadows seemed to dance in the corners of the room, whispering unseen threats. He heard whispers, fragments of conversations that made no sense, yet sent shivers down his spine. Then it began. A low hum, barely audible at first, vibrated through the walls. It grew louder, more insistent, until it felt like his skull was being cracked open. The shadows seemed to solidify, taking on the shapes of grotesque creatures, their eyes burning with malevolent glee. Terror, cold and paralyzing, gripped Silas. He tried to scream, but no sound escaped his lips. He tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy, leaden. The hum intensified, reaching a crescendo that threatened to shatter his eardrums. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. Silence. A terrifying, absolute silence. Silas, trembling, opened his eyes. The shadows had receded, the room returning to its normal, albeit unsettling, appearance. But something had changed. He felt different, a strange sensation, like a veil had been lifted, revealing a world he had never seen before. He could see the faintest glimmer of the future, glimpses of fleeting images, like fragmented dreams. He saw himself, years older, haggard and alone, his eyes filled with a desperate, haunting fear. He saw his empire crumbling, his wealth dwindling to dust. He saw himself hunted, not by the law but by something far more sinister, something that existed beyond the realm of human comprehension. Panic seized him. He had unleashed something terrible, something beyond his control. He had traded his freedom for a cursed gift, a gift that would ultimately consume him. He tried to reach out to Jericho, to beg for forgiveness, to plead for help. But Jericho was gone, his fate sealed by Silas' own hand. Desperation fueled his actions. He sought out every psychic, every medium, every practitioner of the occult, hoping to find a way to break the curse, to undo the damage he had wrought. He spent years searching, pouring his remaining wealth into desperate attempts to find salvation. He consulted with ancient texts, delved into forbidden lore, all to no avail. The visions continued, growing more frequent, more terrifying. He saw the creatures, their forms shifting and morphing, growing closer with each passing day. He saw himself, trapped in a living nightmare, his sanity slowly eroding. The fear, once a distant whisper, now consumed him entirely. He lived in a constant state of paranoia, every shadow, every sound, potential threat. His once luxurious life became a prison. His wealth, once a source of pride, became a burden, a constant reminder of his greed. He was a prisoner of his own creation, haunted by the ghosts of his past and the specter of a horrific future. One night, as he lay awake, tormented by another terrifying vision, he heard a sound, a soft scratching sound, coming from the vent above his bed. He sat up, his heart pounding. He reached for his bedside lamp, his hand trembling. As he flicked the switch, a figure emerged from the vent, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. It was one of the creatures, its form shifting and contorting, a grotesque amalgamation of man and beast. Silas screamed, a sound that was both terror and despair. The creature lunged, its claws extended, its teeth bared. Silas, paralyzed by fear, could only watch as the creature descended upon him. The end came swiftly, mercifully. Silas Thorne, the man who had betrayed his benefactor, had finally paid the ultimate price for his greed. His soul, consumed by fear and regret, was claimed by the very forces he had unwittingly unleashed. And as the creature devoured him, a chilling realization dawned upon the other denizens of the night. Even in the darkest corners of the world, there were some debts that could never be repaid.